So in this section, we're going to talk about the different sales channels, at least the ones that we've been playing with that we can talk about, and the ones that we like the most. The first one, the obvious one, the one that we're sitting in, is a cafe. We're sitting in the Craven Local Food Market. The next would be your traditional retail outlets, like a farmer's market or a grocery store. The next would be a food truck, and we've mentioned that before, and we'll go deeper into that sales channel specifically. The last would be delivery. This is maybe our favorite, it's our most efficient, and so we'll get into that one at the end. Now, the first channel that we're going to talk about in depth is the cafe. Here at the Craven Local Food Market, we only have a cafe at this point because we had an opportunity when we got into the new commercial kitchen space that this was on the highway. We were completely taking over the building, and so with the storefront, people are used to coming in here for food over the last 30 years in this small town. We saw an opportunity to expose our business models as a whole to the community. And so the Craven Local Food Market, even in its name, is pretty broad. And we felt that was important because if it was called Vegetable, here in rural North Carolina, they're just going to kind of pass it by and just assume we're a bunch of vegans and that's not for them. And we're not going to have a shot at those people. So I wanted to have a different name and have sort of a sister brand in order to sort of offer something a little bit different than we were doing through Vegetable previously. And so we can maybe capture a bigger percentage of the market through offering slightly different things that would be more attractive to them. And so through a cafe, I saw an opportunity that we can bring more people into our baby Vegetable, which is our meal subscription service. Because at the end of the day, this underlying theme of this course is lifestyle design. Owning a cafe for me is not in my long-term hopes and dreams. It's not something that I want to do. It's a lot of facing the general public on a day-to-day basis, and that presents its own randomness and things that can happen and interrupt your day. So for me, long term, a cafe is not in the cards. I don't expect. But in the short term, when we were relaunching Vegetable, relaunching the meal subscription, it was really important for us to have a face in a way that the community can come in on their time and meet with us and try our things out. So opening the Craven Local Food Market, naming it that way, it was vague enough where people would be interested enough to at least walk in the door. A lot of people walked in at the beginning. They wanted hot dogs, hamburgers, and sweet tea, and maybe less than half of those customers would actually try something, which is actually not a bad ratio because, we're in, the South, barbecue country. Some people, they're not having their minds changed for the rest of their lives, and that's fine, and we're not going to try to serve those people. But what we did do, we made a lot of compromises when we first opened. And because, again, we wanted people to walk in the door and at least have them try something. If we were going to be so idealistic that all we sold was microgreen salads, we were not going to have any shot at those people. So when we opened up on day one, our opening weekend, we actually roasted a pig. We have a big barbecue pit in the back. People love pork barbecue around here, so that's what we did. And we just sold simple plates. Me never owning a cafe before, I kind of wanted to keep it simple too, a simple menu, just do the same thing. We have a couple people here helping us out, helping us open. And it also gave us an event to launch around that wasn't crazy expensive or something new and completely different that the community might reject. The barbecue plates was a really good opening for us. It allowed people to walk in and get something that they were used to, but at the same time, they understood that this was different. When they walked in, the colors were different, the people were different, so they understood that something else was going on, but yet we still found a way to get them in the door. And I'm really happy we did that. One mistake that we did make on our first weekend is we didn't have sweet tea. I guess I was being idealistic into thinking that we can have a food establishment in North Carolina and not offer sweet tea. As much as I don't want to kill people with sugar, some things are non-negotiable with some people, and so I was willing to negotiate on that. If they insist on the sweet tea, okay, I'm not going to die on that sword. So we did start offering that. And that was good because now that they're willing to come in and get something to drink, and now we also started offering a grass-fed hot dog from a regenerative farm. So again, we don't want to sell hot dogs long term. In fact, as the day of this recording, we don't sell hot dogs. We haven't for a while. But when we first opened, we thought it was important to do that because, again, we wanted people to be accustomed and seeing some of the things that they're used to. Now, the hot dog cost $4, and we definitely had people balk at that. And that's okay because if I have to sell a hot dog less than $4, that means I have to sell so many more hot dogs. And now I'm playing a numbers game where, let's face it, most people around in this town don't care about regenerative farms and aren't going to pay for a $4 hot dog. So right now, that's not my market. That's too much of a jump or too much of a leap for those people. And that's okay. So I'm going to keep a $4. I kept a $4 hot dog for a while. And even some of the people who are on our meal subscription would still get that because look, like, I think a hot dog is delicious now and again, especially if we know that it's 100% Angus grass-fed beef. I think that is a lot more comfortable for people. So it was one of those transitional things that we did to help us kind of find acceptance into this part of the world. And, we didn't open up with a bunch of vegan flag banners, everywhere because I guarantee our traffic would have been way less and I think would have turned some people off. So the Craven Local Food Market as a cafe was our way to introduce ourselves to a market that maybe wouldn't have accepted us in our vegetable format. Yeah, gotcha. And on that first opening weekend when we did the barbecue plate, some of the things that people saw as slightly different or new was we made our own barbecue sauce in-house and we didn't use sugar for it. We used honey, molasses, a couple of different things, which made it really good. Another thing that we did is we had a vegan option. So people would walk in and get something that looked the same that they were used to, but we also would mention, hey, and if you have any vegan or vegetarian friends, check out this jackfruit barbecue. What's jackfruit barbecue? And now all of a sudden, like, you're in this conversation with people and they're engaged and they're at least curious enough to ask what a jackfruit barbecue is. And we were happy to just, like you're walking through a buffet at the mall, someone offers you a sample. We would offer a sample of the jackfruit barbecue. Now, someone who's been eating pork their whole life is now eating jackfruit. Oh, okay. Right, okay. And we had that with live displays of the jackfruit. I mean, we had it in a basket right in front so they can see and they can understand, like, this is the food you're eating. Like, it's hard to have a pig and saying that's what you're eating right now. I think everyone understands that. But when you're introducing a new food, it's kind of good to have a visual and a component, like a physical component that they can see, that whole, from how that became a jackfruit to how that became a vegan version of pork that you're now open to trying. So having I'd say the old timers, the country folk come in and see something that they liked and that they were used to. And like, we were friendly, we were new in town, they got to know us, and some never came back, but some did. And we definitely want people over. And so that opening weekend, I felt, I'm really happy the way that we did that. In hindsight, I think I would do something similar. My idealism wasn't at the forefront. It wasn't my ego. It wasn't me trying to push a bunch of things on people. It was welcoming people, understanding I'm in their community, and seeing how we can find a happy medium together. So as a sales channel, a cafe, just keep in mind the community that you're living in. And this is why it might be helpful to consider multiple sales channels, maybe with multiple businesses, because they're going to reach different people in different ways. And so that's the community of business aspect that I like to talk about sometimes. And a cafe is definitely part of that.
Yeah, I think that being in a somewhat rural area, there is a city, but it's a population of 30,000 people. But there's a lot of people who may be from bigger cities or used to having access to a certain kind of food, who are slightly more adventurous, who in theory would like to eat certain things or like to be able to make certain things. And the fact that we grow a lot of this stuff, and we're working with other small farmers who grow this stuff, and we can create a narrative and a story around that we're able to easily share, and then also show the process of how we're turning that into food. It's gotten very quick buy-in from the kind of customers that we want to work with. We're working with people who want to know where their food is coming from. They want to know that the way that they're consuming is consciously reducing waste. So the subscription model, it doesn't work for everybody. It's not fast, like they have to order ahead of time. There has to be some planning in there, and that's not going to work for every type of client who wants just at the drop of the hat to be able to get something. But if they know that, what they're buying into is this system that has meaning beyond just them being able to eat, I think there's a huge amount of value in that for them. And it also means a lot to us. And it also has meant that we really quickly were able to turn a profit, because we're doing a very specific thing that meets a very specific need without a lot of waste. Like, especially the model of the subscription takes a lot of the risk out of it in terms of how much stuff you have to grow. From the farming perspective, we're not thinking that we have to grow in mass quantities. I'm making the menu every week based on what actually grew. So if I plant something and it doesn't do that well, it sucks, but it doesn't affect the back end of the business because I'm changing the menu every week. And that model, I think, is very scary for people that are in more traditional food service or working with restaurants. Restaurants have the same menu, at least for a season. So farmers need to be able to supply something consistently. We don't have to worry about that, because literally from week to week, like, okay, what's going to be ready to harvest this week? I call, the people that we get stuff from locally. And yeah, we buy stuff at the farmer's market. We still buy stuff at the grocery store when we have to supplement. It's not like we're doing the best we can with what we've got right now, with the idea that we'll be able to have a more robust supply of the things that we grow. But that, I feel like more than anything, the fact that we're changing the menu every week, which is a lot of work, or at least it's consistently having to stay on top of it, it makes it much more doable at this small scale.
I think to the point that this makes a lot of sense. You really don't have to grow that much to feed quite a bit of people.
Correct. Yeah.
You're able to sell out everything that you guys do. It's almost okay to try to supplement, because you're supplementing things you can't grow here anyway.
Yeah.
And if you're supplementing, and even with the supplement, selling every single seed that goes in, that's the goal, right? Is to get all that sold. What the people that you're servicing, it seems to me from outside looking at it, they've been underserviced for so long that when you guys came along, it was like, you talked about that early buy-in, that easy buy-in, and they just jumped at the chance. And I also think that a lot of the things you said all go hand in hand. They want to eat healthy, they want another farmer, they are an adventurous eater. And for the most part, they've had this before, but they can't get it locally. It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah. Yeah, and we do try to balance the menu a little bit for the slightly less adventurous. And I can almost see, when I see an order come through, I can kind of tell, like, oh, that's the husband or wife who's really into it, and then they're ordering a couple things for their partner who maybe just, wants their baked chicken and sweet potatoes and collard greens. Like, we we can still do that. And then, but the bulk of it is the more adventurous stuff, and having the foundation of always having the vegan options on the menu. We do probably have a third of clients who are vegan or vegetarian, and that's all that they order. And then, but other people pull from those parts of the menu each week too. And because we have been cooking that way for so long, we've got, we know how to make it so it's not just tofu every week, or like things that people would want to eat regardless of it being the vegan option.
Has there been times where somebody's like straight leaf potatoes, but they branched off and tried a little bit of stuff and then adopted that more so than what anybody would have thought?
I think people are more, they're more adventurous with the soups and the salads. Just as we call it, we don't even, there's like a little V next to it, but we don't say like, this is the vegan salad, and this is the vegan. Yeah, because we know how to make that stuff delicious. And that's not hard either. Not as hard as people think it is.
Now, some of you might be thinking that a cafe might be a really big, expensive endeavor, and I'd probably agree with you a couple of years ago when I didn't really understand bootstrapping, efficient design, and like just leveraging the tools that are available to us now that just really weren't available a couple of years ago. And again, I just want to harp on that. Like, there's so much more available to us now through apps and online storefronts and all these things, where what we're talking about wasn't really a possibility a couple of years ago. And so this is all here now. Like, this is here, and sometimes we're just a bit late to like catch up to like the newness of it. And so we're just trying to put it in front of you, saying like all this stuff is possible. And so I learned a lot from a book. It was called it was a book on lean startup. It's called The Lean Startup, actually. And is it called The Lean Startup? Okay. Yeah. So I learned a lot from this book called The Lean Startup, and it's really for those companies out in San Francisco, those tech startups, but it gives you a framework on how to start something without investing a ton of resources or time into things that might not pan out. And so from the beginning, this entire thing, I was thinking, how can I spend as little money as possible, give myself the most opportunities to pivot and try different things and not overly commit, and to have people understand that this is going to be a little bit of an incubation period. And so there's a little bit of a fear that if you launch and you're not extremely defined in what you're doing, you're not going to be known for anything. But I think some of the advantage of opening as the Craven Local Food Market, it gave us a lot of room to play in. You know, that general name gave us a lot of things that we could dabble with. So when we first opened, really didn't want to spend too much. I opened up a 10K credit line with my bank. That really got me everything I needed to get started. Got me the first few months of rent. Got me a couple pieces of equipment I needed to fill in the gaps to the things that weren't already here. All the tables and chairs were already here. I just needed some new signage. Wanted to repaint the walls, repaint the floor, clean the place up real good. New fire inspection, all that stuff. There's some license and permit fees with the health department. So really all of that startup and the first 2 months of labor help, just people helping out here and there, making trades and all of that. That was really all that I needed to get started, and we were rolling. So I got everything off of Craigslist to save money. This cafe thing, I didn't know how long-term of a thing it would be for me. So I wasn't thinking that I'm going to buy this fridge because I'm going to need it for the next 5 years. I was really operating on a 1 to 2 year plan, so I was perfectly okay buying some things used, taking the risk that, hey, I just might have tossed that money out the window. There's many things that I bought here for pennies on the dollar, which I'm really happy I did. They're still working. Some of them aren't perfect, but instead of putting up $4,000 on one piece of equipment, to spend $800 on it to get started, hey, you know, you're going to get burned sometimes, but I think overall, especially in this situation where I want to dabble, I want to play, and I'm not so fully committed to this thing for the next 10 years, buying used was just fine for me. That bootstrap thinking, that that efficient thinking also went into the menu. So there's a couple of things I wanted to dabble with that I didn't think that we should start off with ourselves.
Before we get to the game, let's give some situations that find themselves in their market.
What do you mean, a hot market?
Well, like for retail space, is there premium and they have to lock themselves in?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's talk about the distance to speed the way you have to deal with
Okay. Now, this location of the cafe was really ideal for me and the people that we work with, as they're smack dab in the middle of our farms. It's right on a highway. It's easily accessible on and off the road. All those things worked out great for me in this situation. I would say because we have other lines of business, especially the meal subscription, I wasn't going to sacrifice a whole bunch of things just to be in the more popular market. You know, New Bern, which is 15 miles away, that's where our core audience truly is. You know, our meal subscription service, most of the meals are going to New Bern, but this was a slightly different market. And again, calling it the Craven Local Food Market, something a little more broad, allows us to maybe enter a market that's a little closer to home. Like we're already in New Bern, so why go deeper there when we can kind of explore, do something a little different, while all doing it from a home base that's much closer to home, which really puts that lifestyle design at the forefront. So instead of trying to do the trendy thing or the thing that would make us all look good and more popular in town and all of that, we said, no, we want to be close to home and we want to be able to ride our bikes to work. And that's what we've been able to do. So having our commercial kitchen here for vegetable has always been like our core thing. And it's like if we lose sight of that, we're losing sight of the lifestyle design. So we designed a business that we thought could make it work here. So like I had a template of all these ideas I wanted to do, and I can kind of fit that template into anywhere, no matter where the cafe is, and just make the necessary adjustments. So being along a highway in a rural area in barbecue country requires certain adjustments. Now, if you're in a populated area where retail space is at a premium, you just have to make certain adjustments and factor in that lifestyle shift and how that's going to affect that, accordingly. So maybe in this retail space, maybe you are only able to be open on Saturdays or Sundays when an existing business is closed for that day. That would allow you to start small. That would allow you to kind of figure things out as you go and have a low rent. Whenever you can start small or use someone else's space or try things out, I think that's really good. I think that's why we see a lot of pop-up restaurants and pop-up beer gardens, because people are just getting, they're bootstrapping. They're just getting off the ground. They're testing things out. They're testing it out for themselves. We all have an idea that we might want to do something. We might enjoy doing this, but we don't really know until we try it. And for me, that's always been at the forefront. There's a reason why I didn't start an aquaponics farm, even though I really thought I wanted to at some point, because I knew that would lock me into like a pump failing or something like that. Like I couldn't go travel on weekends. So that just wasn't going to do it for me. So when considering a retail space or a cafe or any kind of sales channel, you got to think about how it's impacting your life, how that fits into your community, in the market, and all of these things. So I can't tell you exactly what to do, but as long as you have like a baseline, like these things are the most important to me, and understand what the things that you aren't willing to flex on, it'll make that decision making a lot more clear when you have local barriers and hurdles that you got to jump through that don't make it as maybe efficient or designed in the perfect way.
So what sales channels have you guys utilized to not only spread the message, but to get new clients and try out new ways to get this out there?
I think the food truck, getting the food truck out, especially in the beginning, just to build awareness around the brand and like vegetable was really helpful. Having that at the farmer's market and at Brewery 99, a local brewery. I really think actually the kind of brewery crowd is more our client base. The people that are going, especially to our farmers market, because it's not that great right now. If they're there willing to buy raw vegetables, they're probably not as desperate to have somebody cook them for them. But the kind of more hip, brewery on a Friday night crowd, I think is more of our clientele. Honestly, me personally, my connections in the community helped us a lot. Being a yoga instructor, working in an arts center, that I've definitely pulled in clients and long-term clients too through that. So just personal connection in your community, I feel like cannot be overstated, can't be overstated. Especially with a subscription model, you're really trying to build relationships because you want them to stick around. And we've had a lot of challenges with the sales infrastructure and formatting that, and we've had to make quite a few changes in a short amount of time. So the fact that people stuck with us through that is also really encouraging. And I mean, we have the brick and mortar market as well, which I don't know at the end of the day how much that fed into the subscription itself. Probably somewhat, but because of the location, it's a little bit out. Although we do have, once we transitioned to solely ordering, we've closed the brick and mortar for counter service. We do now have very local clients that have transitioned over to the online ordering.
So Brandon, as you first decided to open up the cafe, you and I took a long trip along the East Coast looking at other places like this to gather ideas. Did a lot of market research there, and you had a place in mind to look at. I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about you had an opportunity to expand. We went really hard into that. I mean, it was almost to go on both of these scenarios, but you had to make decisions that I think a lot of other people are going to find themselves in whenever they're looking into a cafe or maybe this as a sales model. So I want to go through that just to help pull some of those ideas out. So the first one you were looking at originally starting in New Bern. Again, it's 15 miles away, but that's pretty much the population center of the town. A lot more people, like you would obviously have more sales there because that's where where everybody is. It's a good lunch spot, and it was right on the square where a lot of these other cafes locally are. So what were some of those scenarios, like talking to the guy that owned the building? How was taking over that lease looking? And then let's go through that.
Yeah. Well, first, let me say up front, when we talk about these things in hindsight, it looks like this easy, methodical plan that you had it all planned out and you knew what you wanted. I know what I wanted to varying degrees throughout this whole entrepreneurial process, and I still don't know what I want in some areas. And so that process of figuring out what I didn't want as far as having to travel, I had to go through the hard work of trying and failing, and the universe kind of just working out for me in that way. And that's what happened in this case and the next case, actually. So yeah, when it was time to do, I call it Vegetable 2.0, the relaunch, when I had to take a break, a year and a half, and I came back with Joe and Kate to help me out. It was okay, here's two very talented people. I think we can do some awesome stuff. And yeah, I kind of wanted to show off what we're doing because it's awesome. That there's no quick service eating spot in town, and that's where our core market is. And I had a place in mind. It was perfect. I had just heard about this place being potentially for sale. I walked in, I heard the rent was the rent's lower there than it is here, which now it didn't include any of the equipment, so it's kind of an easy wash. It's fine, but just to say that the rent over there was super low, it was great. So I was seeing all the things that could go right, and I was seeing all the amazingness of the possibility. And it's easy to see only that and kind of lose the fact that, hey, I've never owned a cafe before. It is 15 miles away, so all those trips back and forth, it's going to consume my life. I have other companies, so they're going to be affected. But I still was going through the process anyway because I was seeing the bright side of everything.
Let me frame something up for people before we go on. When Brandon says he has other companies, when I said I had other companies, you shouldn't feel like you also don't have a lot of other obligations. There's life, there's learning stuff. A lot of us either began or had a spouse that has another job somewhere else. So us saying that we have other companies is about equivalent to everybody else just living a regular life.
Right.
So there's only so many hours in the day. So navigating yourself through your day-to-day activities, your family's activities, and whatever your kids' schedules are, that all has to fit within this, or you're really going to lose something more than what you may be anticipating.
And yeah, like I said, I see other companies, but I don't have kids. So maybe that's kind of a time swap. But also setting up your office like on your property. I wake up, I'm so passionate about this. Like I love this. It doesn't feel like work. So I wake up, no alarm clock, no nothing, because I'm just ready to go. I'm pumped to just do what I want to do, for that day. So yeah, it's all intertwined. The lifestyle design, the business you set up, the sales channel you choose, and everything. So yeah, thinking I wanted to open up the retail cafe in New Bern. It was sexy, it was cool, but I would definitely be taking a lifestyle hit for like this, like ego bump, I guess you could call it, like in the most honest terms. And, I think the universe has just done me favors sometimes because, we were all ready to go on that. We were about to sign the lease, and
You got very close.
I got very close, and I had it all mapped out, like the whole plan, the menu. Like I went deep on this thing, and I still have my notes. And I hate when I come across those pages because it's like,
Well, dude, you had to make an equipment list.
Yeah.
And we had to go as far as what kind of dishes you were going to get, what kind of glasses, what kind of silverware, what kind of napkins. All of those are major capital hits in the front with no guarantee that anything's going to happen.
and I was gonna have to sell my food truck to do it. In fact,
Yeah.
I had my food truck on eBay. It sold. The guy never got back to me, and then it fell through. So it fell through because the landlord who had that nice rent just had a preference. Like someone he knew wanted to open the spot, so he's just, I don't know him, I know him. You got it, and hey, it worked out for me. So like I'm good, because again, after the fact, when I had some hindsight behind it, I was like, oh.
You would have been locked in.
I would have just been locked in. I would have sacrificed everything that I had worked for at that point. Not everything, but like I would have, maybe it would be awesome, but damn, like everything would have had to gone right.
The other thing that I can foresee happening was, like right now, the way the subscription is set up, it's so manageable with everybody involved. But if you were down there, you would have lost a lot of credibility because you would have had to stay open. You don't have the luxury of shutting down like you do here. There's less traffic. People would have been going by an empty building. When people go by an empty building, that business is cursed.
Yep.
So it was almost a double favor because you still out here are somewhat anonymous and, well, he's out on the farm kind of mindset. And I think that's been
Right.
very, very a saving grace along the way.
That's a good point. I haven't thought of it like that. It's like, they're in New Bern. I can always go there, and they're just close enough where you never actually get there. So being far away and saying, hey, we can come to you, develops that other sales channel, and the fact that it's like the only way to get them is to do this.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like negotiating with that building owner? Because a lot of people that are going to come onto this, they're going to have those negotiations.
Yep.
What are some things people need to look out for? What are some general renting agreements that you've seen?
So I was negotiating through the restaurant owner, not the building owner, the restaurant owner. And
This was a sublease.
yes. So I just always know off the bat when you're talking to busy people to be absolutely the most respectful of their time you can possibly be. At the same time, I've got a creative mind. I need to grease wheels. I didn't have cash laying around to afford the place, so like I'm thinking of solutions that kind of like makes it work for the both of us. I offered the food truck to him, but here he is opening up a new restaurant, and it's like he loved the food truck. His wife loved the food truck idea, but like for him to take on a food truck while he's opening up a restaurant, like, so I guess I could have avoided that offer, but like that was my big chip. So like I was okay like offering that once, but once he didn't go for that, it was more of like, okay, now I got to sell the food truck to raise cash. Hey, because I need to raise all this cash for, well, let me offer you this for all the existing equipment in there. Let me pay it to you in $5,000 chunks over the course of the year. So I didn't like need all this stuff up front. So I was just more of thinking like, how can I reduce the impact up front, like this huge investment. So I was sort of looking for solutions around there, but at the end of the day, like also for him, who doesn't want just a pile of money up front? So there's that.
And a guarantee that somebody's going to maintain the lease for
Right.
6 months at least, a year or more.
But I think what he appreciated was my, like, not everyone's going to give you like kind of these oddball offers, and like he knew I really wanted it, and I was passionate, and I was like also respectful of his time. So like he like thought me like, oh look at this, like kind of entertained him a little bit, and he loved it. So we actually had this like respect for each other that we still carried forward, and I do consider him a contact and all of that. So even though it didn't work out, the negotiation will look like whatever you imagine it to look like.
And there's no rules.
Yeah, there's no, exactly, and that's what I was trying to get at. Like, there's no rules, and even though it didn't work out, I totally could have seen a circumstance where I worked out something that like wasn't the standard. I'm going to take a bank loan. It's going to be a big chunk, and now I pay it to you. Like, all options are on the table if you just think about it in those terms. But at the same time, like, vet your idea because it might just be completely loony. So put it through a filter.
Especially a filter with somebody that has run a restaurant before, has owned the building before, possibly have seen other tenants. Their barometer may be a good gauge that something's off kilter a bit. That's not to say that you can't have an idea totally outside of the box and believe in that if you vet it that that's a good idea. You may not vet it against him because he may not be your client, but there's other ways of looking at it. But having somebody give you that good, honest feedback from a business perspective, from a high churn area, possibly might be a good idea.
Yep.
So that was a wash. You got this place. We've already told that story. Everything's where it's at now. But I'd say, well, it was about the first of the year, so 4/3 is, I don't know what month this is, but a few months ago, you had another location pop up, super ideal, a lot of unique features. Again, we mapped it out. We looked at what all could go in there. It fit really well with Urban Farm Academy. It fit really well with Bootstrap because it was going to allow you to test about 4 different businesses in one location.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the opportunity and the location first.
Yeah, because that was the best part of it. So I have all these ideas in my head, and some of them are definitely yours, where it's like we're coming together. It's like we want to test these things out, and so to have like a multi-purpose building that can house like Vegetable and Craven Local Food Market and Seed to Shaker and something I was going to call the Bounty, which was a weekly, purely local farm to table dinner, like that would be awesome, right? And again, it goes back to that same thing of like trying to do this thing that's going to be awesome or like you're going to have a good life. Like, I don't know if those two are always going to be on the same page, you know what I mean? So, yeah, this location, again, it was in New Bern. It was right next to the farmer's market where there's tons of parking all during the week. And like, I really do care about that farmer's market. People that run it are good people. Everyone's got something to say about their farmers, but it's like, it's just people volunteering and coming together and providing locally made products. And like, it's the greatest thing. And to have the opportunity to put all of my business ideas directly next to the farmer's market, it would have been absolutely synergistic.
And the other thing about your business ideas is it didn't interfere with anybody else that was already at the market.
Oh, no.
So it would have become a kind of cornerstone flagship addition to the market. It may have been across the street, but it definitely would have been an addition.
The one thing our farmers market lacks is consistent food and drink options, a place to sit. It has none of those. And we would have offered all of that. And yeah, there would have been no aspect of the business that would have directly competed with anyone at the farmers market because I was also planning that in because the Craven Local Food Market has a grocery section, let's say, or did. It kind of fluctuates what we define as a grocery. But at some point, you can buy bags of coffee and locally made soaps through our grocery delivery. But if we had all those same locally made items in our store that were also in the farmers market, now we're just hurting the farmers market. So it's like some aspects of that, it's like, just don't be a dick, you know? So there was enough ideas to play with in there. And again, it would have been great for the farmers market, and I told this idea to the farmers market manager. She loved it. And so I think what happened again was I saw all the possibility. I saw all the awesome things that can go right because things were just starting to pick up with the Craven Local Food Market as well. The staff was really good, you know, coming together, figuring stuff out. It looked like we had pieces in place, and it's like, oh, I actually think we could make this jump. And so I started seeing all of the great things again. And yes, I was like definitely more concerned about the downside this time, but the possibility was so great and epic where it like trumped the first time around. So it was like even like a harder force to resist.
And I want to more clearly define what you were going to put in that building. So the four elements would have been the Craven Local Food Market, exactly what you had here, but it would have had to have been opened up a lot more. It would have had to have been open pretty much.
So you basically walk in and it's like a little grocery, a little coffee, specialty coffees and all of that. The racks where we grow the microgreens, so you can come and just grab some micros and get out. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you were going to have prepared food so people could either eat it there or take it back to their place. You were still going to house the delivery out of there. You were going to do Seed the Shaker, which is a craft cocktail / mocktail program where you were going to use the racks and almost in essence shut it down for the evening, open it back up on the hot days.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They'll come out at night, and it almost becomes a speakeasy type of establishment. So it's all one company, and it's all one type of way of bringing food to the market there. But it was clearly going to be this market, then drink, then delivery, and then whenever you were going to have these family-style, totally inclusive dinners with just local farmers.
Yep. And don't forget the Farm Fusion Cafe that had the burritos, the tacos, and the ramen bowls, which we were already doing pretty well with up here. And people in New Bern would really love that, especially at the farmers market, like where you bring all of your kids to be able to get a pizza with. Come on, like that's why we do pizza, because like all the toppings on those are definitely things that can be local. Like, no, we're not growing the wheat. We're not there yet. But to grow all those toppings, that connects people with food, and that's important too. And so we would have done all those things. It would have been awesome.
So, what shut her down? What shut that idea?
Yeah, so I was preparing to take out a loan, which is anti-bootstrap. I'm going to do a bunch of things that we haven't done before.
This came down to the wire. I mean, like, the next day.
Yeah. I mean, look, we had been running a cafe. We had been figuring it out. We got the audience. The people were following us, liking us, sharing our stuff. We've been asked to come to New Bern multiple times at that point, like lots of times. And just the people there, like people working, were like, they're just, well, let me
They're
put
almost waiting for you to come.
Let me put it this way. I appreciated how much the people around me were willing to come along with that idea, because it would have required a lot from them too. And I told them all that, like I recognized, like it actually made me recognize that I am kind of leading this, and they're behind me, and they'll do, I think, have some crazy idea, like they're kind of behind me, and I really appreciated that. But at the same time, it came down to, well, what actually happened was I got physically sick for the first time in I don't know how many years, maybe 10 years, I don't know. But like all of the things that would have to be done, like the $8,000 a month rent payment, first of all, the big loan I'd have to take out, the construction, the interior, the this, the that, and like it was just kind of like ping-ponging in my head at night.
Plus, we were looking at a year of doing this.
Yes, while doing this.
While running Bootstrap.
And growing Bootstrap and doing the Urban Farm Academy. And so Now, it would have been a great showcase for the Urban Farm Academy, but that's kind of what, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is all like ego talking. This is not like practical. Like, this is practical. This is what people would do. You know, this is what farmers can do across the country in a rural area, more populated, like this. Not this thing. You know what I'm saying? So, all of the things that had to be done were just going crazy in my head. I wasn't sleeping at night, and that developed me getting sick. And I'm one who's into my body and all that, know like little things that go on. And I was like, my body's telling me something. It's like,
Because it was only going to get
this is just the big.
worse.
You haven't even you done anything yet. This is just the beginning, and so that was the sign that told me chill. And thank God again, because even after that, we scaled back the cafe even more because it's like the subscriptions are picking up. We've converted people coming into the cafe into subscribers. So imagine that you have, you know, a restaurant or something, and you can bring people in and then convert them onto a subscription business. That's awesome, and that's why we did the cafe in the first place. So if we hadn't lost track, or I hadn't lost track of why we opened the cafe in the first place, to introduce the community into what we're doing, to convert them ultimately into subscribers, it might take 10 visits here. It might be a longer funnel, a more roundabout way, but like our best customers at the Craven Local Food Market, we've all converted into subscribers.
And so this community of businesses, these funnels you talk about, it was at the exact same time what I was doing at the farmers market. We were using the farmers market as a way to make pretty good money on Saturdays, but there wasn't one Saturday that we didn't convert at least one person over into a yearly subscription.
Yeah.
And when you figure, look, most people will get around 46, 47 deliveries per year if they're on the program. That was good for like $650 a year. So every single week we did that, we added $650 to the bottom line, $650 to the bottom line. Having your sister and brother companies help each other up and piggyback off each other, you know, you don't have to have a gigantic cafe, or I don't have to have the best farmers market booth ever, but everything has to be consistent and at different price points while still maintaining some degree of profitability. So what went into these meals wasn't anything like what went into these, but they were not competing.
And they just connect with different people differently. Like vegetable for us is like the farm to meals, like very local farm, like the fresh food aspect of it. The Craven Local Food Market is like clean eating, like healthy. We do the sodas, the desserts, all that stuff, and that's sort of the focus, but it's done in a healthy way. Like I'm the dessert king, you know, I like making ice cream and egg custard and all these things, but I do it with ingredients that don't, you know, destroy my body. And so now all of a sudden, like that CrossFit crowd, the health-minded crowd, like they're not the farm stuff. They're cool. They want like optimal performance for their body. So, and that's kind of what I resonate to with a little bit more than like I mean, I love it all. So, but that's how I speak to customers to the Craven Local Food Market. And now Joe and Kate can talk to customers through the lens that makes them most passionate. And because we're focused on like the thing that makes us more passionate through multiple businesses, we can reach a wider segment of this market, which again, good luck, but we pulled it off. And that's how we've been pulling it off. And now here we are months into it, and you know, the first location in New Bern didn't work out, the expansion didn't work out in New Bern, but here we talked about Seed to Shaker, and now it's maybe circling back in a much more efficient way where we're just kind of adding a mocktail service to our delivery business. And so we have a person who wants to run that line, and it's already plugging into all existing systems. It doesn't require really anything else, and it allows us to dabble. And so really what this commercial kitchen is, and what Farm Fusion in my eyes can be, is a way to incubate a whole host of ideas that if you give yourself the commercial kitchen, the area to play with, or multiple people that will come and play with you, you get to test all of these things out. And the Craven Local Food Market kind of gave us an umbrella to kind of figure out what we like doing best. And for us right now, that's the pickles, kombucha, the soda, hummus, snack packs, dessert packs,
Energy bites.
Energy bites. Oh, geez, how did I forget those? So those are the things. And now we have like a world to focus on and improve, and we're not recreating the wheel all the time because that's a lot of work up front, and that's what'll burn you out. But we built the systems on both. They all work. We're all just in the kitchen Sunday. It's cooking for two businesses, you know, living. And so now the Craven Local Food Market is a one-time purchase option for, like, you can try out the subscription meals on a one-time, more expensive basis through the Craven Local Food Market. So it's like the Craven Local Food Market is the only place you can get a vegetable meal not on subscription. And so now we're like an exclusive vendor kind of thing. And so I'm not even sure how many people know that we're both. The people that come in know, but the people that we just kind of broadcast to on social, I'm not sure if they know that we're both, and that's I'm okay with that.
Can you talk about some of the possibilities of events, maybe hosting stuff here at the brick and mortar every now and then, maybe doing some on-location events or private parties like with a food truck or something?
Yeah, I would be really excited to do farm dinners. And we've thought about doing kind of hyper-local events here as well. Again, I feel like with what we are trying to do, it's about building community and loyalty. And so having those, especially kind of exclusive, you know, like 10 to 20 people in attendance. And it would give us the opportunity to really, truly do like a hyper local, like as much local ingredients as possible. That's really exciting to me personally. But the more of an experience you can create for people, I think the more connection they're going to have to it. And yeah, being able to bring them out to the farm too. That again ties them even closer into the food that they're eating at the end and the origin of it.
This is a question just for me. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on the generational gaps as far as acceptance and as far as using the technology to order, and it's an online portal from what they're having to do. Obviously, I would think that a certain demographic would fall more into that as far as age than the other, but what are the differences between the two?
We have had struggles getting some of our 50 plus clients to be really comfortable using the online portal. And I do think that's definitely affected our client base because it's just something they have to learn to navigate. So doing more over the phone, and I mean we're still at a scale where we can accommodate people, but certainly you can tell the younger crowd has more fluency and can, you know, really manipulate the system because there is a lot of flexibility. They need to be able to go in and change their order from week to week because we are changing our menu, and so it has taken time sometimes to build that, to train the clients to be able to use the system. But we do have a lot of retirees in this area, and a lot of them have been some of our best clients, most consistent and stayed with it, especially because of where I work in town in the art center. That's a lot of the population, so some of those clients that have been pulled in, so they just come and ask me to help them.
Same question, but instead of inserting technology, is the same two groups, is one more easily accepting of all the different food options that you guys have versus somebody that's eaten the same thing for the last 40 years?
Yes, we've had quite a few instances of older clients trying it and just not being, it's just not palatable to them. Either they can't handle any heat spice, which we try to keep that, you know, to a minimum anyway. Or then they complain that it doesn't have enough salt, or it's, and that's, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, that's okay because we're doing what we want to do, and there are people out there that want that the way we're doing it. So, but yeah, I think for a lot of folks of the older generation, we're a little bit too out there in terms of our menu options. But not everybody.
One thing I really want to keep doing is to help people put their own lens on this. So if you're looking at expanding or starting a farm and adding this as a component, where do you start, kind of thing. And for us, we started at the nursery location that I had. That's when we first started doing the very rudimentary salads. And from there went to the subscription. So we almost went backwards by doing subscription and then go into the farmers markets. But I think a lot of people will most likely begin there. And that's a conversation, again, with your market manager and probably with the county health department, what you can and cannot do. But we've seen, Brandon and I have been to farmers markets all over the country, and there's always an added value vendor, no matter what. And they're very welcomed, whether that's added value just on coffee or jams and jellies or soap, bath and body care. All these things are currently already going, but I think a lot of people don't really think of it as added value product. They may just think of it as, I'm going to make goat soap.
Yep.
Well, what can you do with goat soap to add value to it? Or you put it in a gift basket, or you put it on a subscription, or there's so many things you can do. And then if you open that up to, a lot of that stuff can actually be shipped. If you're doing jams and jellies, I've bought jams and jellies from farmers markets vendors to send as gifts.
Yep.
Wherever else to spend your money, but giving your clients that option around, hey, maybe Christmas time when you're slow anyway, and then maybe have an even better boost of sales to get you through the rest of the winter time. Look, you don't have to do this all the time, but if you make it a component, added value. We've seen chefs come out to farms. It may be a once or twice a year thing, but I think it should at least be considered within the business plan.
Yeah. And I liked when you were talking about all the different value-added things that you can find at a farmer's market, and different things, different ways that we can add value to that equation. And that really gets into probably our favorite sales channel right now, which is delivery. And I hope this doesn't get buried within the course, but here's the biggest opportunity right now that I see available to people all across the country. Right now, this whole food system is based off of supply chains, Cisco, and all of that, right? Like mega supply chains. But yet, there's, in most towns and counties, there's a dairy farmer. There's milk being produced. There's people producing goat milk or goat soaps. Honey is being produced. Oils. All of these different things. So I see a big opportunity coming, especially with more people. The variety of value-added foods, is always increasing. Like microgreens weren't really a thing, a couple of years ago. Kombucha wasn't really a thing.
And if you don't think added value things is not a thing, there's a reason that salad bars and ready-to-eat meals and delis are at Whole Foods.
Yeah, right. That's all. Everything's value added. In the loose sense of the term. And so, what I see is an opportunity to bring all of those different things to the customer. Let's think about this. Everyone's used to all these different products being at the farmer's market. Well, what the farmer's market is, in most cases, is 4 to 6 hour window, 1 day a week, where 5% of the population might come out if it's nice out.
If you're lucky.
And they might see your booth if they're walking by. So how big of the market are you cutting off right from the beginning because of the sales channel you chose there? So what I see as a massive opportunity is, because those people aren't coming to the farmer's market. Look, on Saturdays when I was growing up, I had basketball games, baseball games, soccer practice, all these things that my mom, the whole family was out, not able to go to the farmer's market every weekend because we had sports, we had stuff going on. So how do we still reach these people? Amazon's proven the model for us. Just go to their house, deliver it to them. And that's what I see as the opportunity to, we have the coffee, the barbecue sauce, the soaps. There's different things that we were starting to collect and saying, well, we're already delivering meals. Would you like coffee with your meals? Would you like the pickles with your meals? Would you like fudge, ice cream?
Or this meat that you get from another...
Well, so now there's some things, if we were to start delivering frozen meat, now we're starting to get into HACCP plans and all this because we're transporting raw stuff. So like you can do that and it's an option, but that's just kind of going like a layer deeper. That
Sure.
again, it's like one of those things like, we can sacrifice doing the raw meat for now because if we're delivering meals, well, that's what you're going to eat.
One thing I had really good success with is I mentioned earlier the Bath and Body Care. There was a vendor at the market. She had the best Bath and Body Care stuff I've ever seen. And to broaden her audience, I said, hey, we're going to do this delivery. It's Christmas coming up. And she had excess amounts of stuff because she was doing like Christmas shows and that kind of thing. So we put it out. These are available in these packs, and we pre-sold those for her. The day before, she dropped off a bulk load of a few $100s of this stuff, and we did that for 2 weeks around Christmas. I had a buddy. He was a woodworker. He made handmade Christmas ornaments. The only place in town to get that was through us. So they did not have to go sell their stuff. We were able to sell it because we had a much larger audience. He didn't have any audience, and we were able to get that in front of much more people. So think of your marketing and your farm and your social channels as a marketing platform that you can help other people like other farmers especially market their stuff as they're getting started. If you're doing that with them, and what we always did was if she charged $10 for a thing, we just charged $10 plus 20%. So we would make 12, and we just got the $2 for having the asset of the marketing machine, having the asset of being able to collect, distribute the funds, and deliver the item. So it was fair for everybody.
Yeah. And in our case, what we can do is, because you always had to do a pre-order, everything could already be paid for. So we had everything paid. Right now, we have everything that's paid for Friday morning. So we go to the farmer's market on Saturday and buy everything with the funds we've already been paid with. And the same can be true for the grocery section if you want to expand that out. Now, you obviously have to be a little careful to make sure those vendors have those things available. But for instance, the coffee guys, they always have the same coffees there. It's very easy for us to throw that up and make that an option to include with your subscription on a week-to-week basis. Or if you're ordering through the Craven Local Food Market online, it's just part of the grocery. So all of these things are available to you. We're already out delivering. We're already coming out to your house. And 100% of the market is available to be delivered to. 100% of the market is not going to the farmer's market on Saturday. So from a logistical thing, it's paid for up front. You don't have to put anything you don't have to take the gamble of hoping that everything sells. It's just it's a safer equation, and it serves people in the way that they want to be served.
Out of all the people we talk to, distribution seems to be one of the biggest hurdles. How to get it from point A to point B, how to get it in front of the right people. By bringing more people along with you and working on the distribution point together, you increase your audience, you increase their audience. It doesn't really, we've never seen it take away from anybody. It only adds to. So It's just something to consider.
And the fewer things that you can focus on and do excellent, I think is always a good thing. So maybe there's someone else who really complements what you're doing, and you both go in on the delivery aspect together, and now you're maybe splitting the delivery routes. And so everyone's equipment is being utilized, their time is being utilized. And I just love the fact that if you can get paid up front and not have to waste. Like, we're trying to get to a system where we're not wasting anything. That should be like the standard for our food system, where nothing is wasted. It's just got the mindset's got to be a zero waste system. So we know subscription ordering is new to people, and there's definitely like a curve. And we struggle with our customers. They have questions, even though it's so easy, it's clear as day. They still have questions. There's a learning curve, but this is why the ship doesn't get righted overnight. Habits are hard to break, but it just seems like bringing it to their house on a method that doesn't waste anything. And we even do the jar program, which we haven't talked about yet. But through our meal subscription service, for a $10 fee one time for life, we'll put all your meals in jars, and you give us your jars, the following, we'll just keep switching out. And all of these things just make it more efficient. Your costs are more well known, more well planned for. And in farming, those are the biggest hurdles. We're trying to take as much of the risk out as we possibly can. And look, just a pure reality of business and farming, when we opened for 1 week. We were open for 1 whole week on our relaunch, and then Hurricane Florence came in and just devastated this area. Like, New Bern was widely on TV, all that, the hardest hit area. So we were basically shut down for the next 2 weeks. I was surrounded by water. We couldn't get out. So the local farms were affected by that too, and people knew as soon as we got reopened, there just wasn't as much locally available, but we were still able to open. We didn't have to like sell our souls or our ideals. Like, everyone understood, like, this is a process. This is hard. This is going to take time. And this is why we always try to add one more ingredient, to the ramen balls. Now we're doing bean sprouts, we're trying to get to, because it adds one more thing over time. There's going to be hurricanes which devastate us. So it makes us think like maybe we should go indoors for a more bit of this. That's just going to protect us from that. All these things, and look, this is rebuilding mode. This is part of the process, and this is also part of why we're doing Urban Farm Academy, because by sharing this model, making more of these businesses out there, you have a more resilient businesses. You have a more resilient business. There's more of them out there, and by localizing that food supply, it's just more resilient system as a whole. And so this is, no matter how you can start, where you can start, whether it's a small rack, whether it's a cafe or a food truck or in your basement,
Farm stand.
there's a place to start. And if you got these pivot points in mind, vision for where you want to be, like, those are the goals.
Yeah, I mean, we're making compromises to run a business, but I feel like the kinds of things that we're able to offer, maybe if I was in a city and I could see all of the even more like progressive ways people were running businesses, I would have a bit of a complex about it. But what we're offering here is so much more than what is happening locally in terms of being aware of waste and offering jar exchange, and even like everything that we buy, we're thinking about those things. And we buy a lot of stuff for the business that we would never buy for us at home personally, but I think the benefit of what we are providing, the option to our clients that is like a less wasteful, more conscious way of consuming, is more valuable than not doing it at all.
Do you feel like through the business and through those examples and what you guys are doing, people may be able to take that and move that ball forward a little bit at home? Well, maybe I shouldn't get so many plastic bags when I go shop, or maybe I shouldn't get so much packaging.
I hope so. I think that's definitely a big part of how I feel like we all can collectively kind of make changes. It's not the government coming in and banning plastic bags. It's not us saying you have to get your meal in glass if you want to buy food from us. We offer it as an option. And, I think almost a third of our clients now do the jar exchange. And the other ones are getting everything in paper containers. And I hope that kind of seeps into their consciousness of what, how it's possible to use less plastic. And when we do have to talk about why we do this subscription model, how that leads to less waste in the foods that we use, even showing how we compost the food scraps from the kitchen and give them to the chicken, modeling, those sorts of things. Beyond us, being able to make a little bit of a living off of it also feels good in terms of impacts on the community.
So part of the bootstrapping aspect to this cafe that we used to make sure that we didn't spend a lot of money opening it was to use things that we had on hand. Here you can see things from other companies that I have to sort of fill in the space. And it's not completely random, but we just wanted a lot of color. And because we didn't have some big budget to use, it's not all of the same things that are done in a really nice color coordinated kind of way. We're kind of going with that non-perfect farmy approach, because this building is definitely non-perfect. I'm not a perfect craftsman of anything, and it just kind of gave a more comfortable feel than all of the straight edges and everything. So we kind of leaned into, that farmy aspect of everything. So we just try to fill out the space. Like it's a big space, and we're trying to do just a little bit of things. So this was just a rack that was already here, some wood that we had laying around the house, and what we did was we painted all the different types of food that we make. So we could take those signs, we could take them with us on the food truck, where we have a stand where we can hang these things at. And when we're not using for the food truck, they're just scattered around the cafe to add color. So they're the same colors as we have for some of the products that Bootstrap has, the same products as the walls. It's kind of like, the themes of what we have. It's nice, it's vibrant, it feels fresh. And when people walk in here, instead of getting some kind of like depressing feeling from an old rickety building, which this definitely could be, we painted the walls, we repainted the floors, and we added all this color. So all those like imperfections sort of just kind of go away. So, we have a couple different products. This is our Craven Local Food Market breakfast blend coffee, and this is in whole bean form. And what we do is we grind the beans, we turn it into a cold brew concentrate, and we sell the concentrate as part of our grocery delivery service. These are just some things that we were keeping on hand when we were open to the public more. People can come in, buy the barbecue sauce, the honey, the locally made soaps. We're 15 miles from the farmers market, so none of those people that were going there were coming here for those things. And just utilizing some of our products just to fill in the space. We didn't have too much we were going to do. One method I used to save money was, this comes from one of our suppliers, the local sausage maker. This is his freezer, and it's stocked with all of his sausages, so we can just kind of pull in here from our own for our meal subscription service. In the days that we were open, people can come in here and grab their own sausage. The only days that we're open now is Mondays, where people can pick up their subscription meals, or whenever we make extras, we put them in the cold case and people can buy those. So for the last couple of weeks especially, we've been just selling out of everything, which is really the goal of what we're trying to do. So even if we make extras, maybe those people who, I forgot to get in the subscription this week, they still have an opportunity early in the day to come and pick up anything extra. And so just adding to that farmy thing and helping other farmers out and displaying that their products, Beaufort County Organics, which is a friend, he makes these mushroom kits. So he would do these mushroom spawn in a bag, and all you'd have to do is take them home, keep a nice environment for them, and they would start making mushrooms. And so everything you see behind me is sort of a result of the evolution that we've been going through. First of all, it's springtime. We used to have a bunch of plants back here in the winter, so we would always have our own basil and all that for the pizza. But, now that it's spring, everything's back outside. Now that we're not open on a day-to-day basis, we don't need those plants in here. I don't want to spend the electricity growing a bunch of things that, there's beautiful sun out there growing everything just fine. So we moved a lot of that over to the house. This grow rack is where we were growing our microgreen salads, and we kind of slowed down on that for now because the other products that we have were a bit more popular, and the whole process of growing those microgreens on a week-to-week basis, we just kind of haven't figured out the person to do it and really focus enough on that. But this is where we do it. The ramen toppings are typically grown on the top when we were doing that. All of our spring onion, celery, the possibilities are endless there. We do give nutrients to this rack through aquaponics. We have a koi down there, 3 goldfish. It's not too much. It's nice for a place like this, and it handles the production of the rack well. So you can see the latest version of the menu that we had. The menu used to be quite a bit bigger, but as we open less and less days, kind of confining what people can come get from us, we also kind of scaled down the menu. But this is really the basic framework of a farm fusion menu, where we did the ramen bowls, and we can do that in the broth or as a dry noodle. And we had tacos, burritos, or bowls, because again, changing all of those things and making those options all available is super easy. Chipotle style, they have probably 100 different selections from 20 base things, you know, so that's kind of what we're able to do there. And then we had the homemade pizza, and we really like that because that's what people around here really like, especially like during the week. They just want to order something quick. And because we can grow a lot of the toppings, like that was an easy connection point for people where, you know, that basil just tasted way better than basil that they've ordered on a pizza before. And so that told them that there was something going on, like, oh, the freshness must matter or something like that. So these things all kind of had different ways to connect with people in different ways. And most importantly, it's things that we can grow ourselves. You know, again, we base that menu off of what we can do locally first. So this is the kitchen, and it's not complicated really. It's a pretty simple layout that works for us. We've had to move out some equipment we didn't need. There was 2 fryers here, which we just decided we were never going to use. The smell, all that stuff. So we took that out, put an extra prep table in, because, you know, for meal prep, we just need a lot of counter space to lay things out. So that was an easy decision for us. You can see, I mean, we just have the standard triple drop sinks, the deep washing sink, the hand sink. That's pretty much standard in any commercial kitchen operation that you're going to have. So at a very baseline, like, factor all that in. And here we have 2 ovens and 2 ranges. Full disclosure, we have that because this one doesn't work, but yet it's got some good ranges on it, but the oven doesn't work. It's just so old, greasy and all that from previous things that we couldn't really cover it. No worries there. We use this one just fine. We have an oven. Another thing you'll need for a commercial kitchen, most likely, is a hood. If you do any kind of stovetop cooking, you need a hood. Here you can see we just have our bags sitting here from yesterday. This is the jars that people returned to us. So we'll go in here a bit later and clean out those jars and get them ready for next week. You can see that we're not using the metal lids. Those metal lids, they start rusting. They're not really made for public multiple time use. So in this case, we do have to switch to easily cleanable plastic lids. I would say don't even bother asking your health department whether you can use those metal lids. I don't think it's a good idea. And you really do want to show that you understand their concerns and just be proactive where you can be. You can see the rest of the kitchen here. You know, big refrigerator, freezer, another freezer over there. We have a walk-in cooler and a walk-in freezer out back. Because most of the stuff we're using, we're purchasing that weekend, like, we just don't need a ton of storage space. And even when we had the cafe open, we didn't need a ton because it's kind of first in, first out. We don't like to do food waste around here, so, you know, keeping organized, making sure we're using the ingredients we purchased last, we're using them first. Dating everything is super important. We lost the most points on our last inspection because we had just done the meals for the meal delivery service. Not all the boxes had dates, and that's really important. So even though we know we made it Sunday, we know we just made it the day before, the customer knows it was just made the day before, it still needs the date, you know. So don't think that you can get away with things. Just, again, be proactive. We let it slip a little bit on that, but overall everything else was pretty good. We keep a pretty clean kitchen here, especially when if there's multiple people using this kitchen, which, because we're closed every day, there's actually a nonprofit going to be spending a lot of time here renting out the kitchen for me. So that's going to take care of all my rent, all of my utility bills, plus some. So again, we found a way to utilize a cafe when we needed it to grow the business, but now that we don't need to grow that business as much, and we basically went to an all online and delivery format, now this kitchen is open can be used. And so I'd like to get my money back on the rent and all the utilities and extra income, you know, just from the usage. So that's what we're going to be doing. And that's part of the reason why we're making this transition that we are, because thinking about lifestyle design, we all want to enjoy our springs, grow and cook, and that's about it. We don't want to be here waiting for people to come in. It's not what we started this for. I don't want to manage a bunch of employees just to stay open. We might make more money that way. I don't really care. I like what we're doing. I like the business that we have. I like the business channels that we can continue to grow and do it efficiently and do it in a way where we got time to do this. So this is our walk-in cooler. Recently broke on us, so we converted, instead of spending about $2,000 to fix the compressor inside the unit, we just went, cut a hole in it, put an air conditioner, and installed a CoolBot. I gotta say, that CoolBot was super easy to install. The hardest part is just cutting the hole, and if you have a Sawzall, it's really not that difficult. Like, it took about 2-3 hours start to finish, and that was about it. I can't recommend CoolBot enough. It's a really practical, simple solution. If you're walking on your farm, if you're walking on your restaurant, I would say it's a great way to save some money. So this is our barbecue pit. It's mostly a relic of the past, for this business anyway. We did use it to cook the pig on our opening weekend, which was fantastic. We have made multiple pigs in here, but just in our situation, we're not using it much anymore. I would say I'm definitely underutilizing this as an asset to the building because people in this area love barbecue, and I'm sure there's a lot of startup restaurateurs that would love to have access to a barbecue pit and a kitchen that's not being used during the week. So, like I said, we have a nonprofit coming in to use the kitchen. I want to be careful about who I work with, and the thought of just being involved with a big production barbecue, and I don't care if they're renting it, it's not something I want to deal with. So again, I've kind of chosen lifestyle design over like maximizing profits in this regard, but that's decisions for you to make. It's a nice barbecue pit, it works great, but it's probably just going to be sitting here for the foreseeable future.
If somebody were to watch this and then come up to you and go, how do you guys garden and live your life and do all the other things that you do, plus run this food thing, plus it seems like there's a lot of pluses at the end of your week. Give somebody a sense of how you compartmentalize your schedule, how you use one to feed the other. I mean, how is it not overwhelming?
It's a little overwhelming right now. Compartmentalizing, I think it's important what you said. That's what I've been working on personally, is setting really clear boundaries for when I do certain things. I manage a business in town, and I'm there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that's what I do when I'm there. And I don't answer those emails. I don't and that's taken probably 2 years of conscious work on my part to really start to set those firm boundaries. And we live in this gig economy where everybody's got a side hustle, and you're working all the time. And I think as our generation needs to mature to the point where we can set boundaries and say, this is what I'm working on. If I'm going to be doing 10 different things, I need to set time out. And I have my one day off, which is today, but I'm here because we're doing an event.
If you're on camera, you're great too where you're at.
Yeah, but trying to hold space for myself and set boundaries and have kind of check-ins. We're going to do this for this long and see how it goes. And really evaluate what, is this working? And then make adjustments, because I feel like often people just trudge along, slog along. It's, I just got to do this. I just got to do this. Yeah, maybe something will happen. But, setting deadlines for yourself and assessing not just how much money you're making, but how you feel at the end of the day. And what I try to remember back to is when I was teaching full time, and making, a decent salary. I woke up every day anxious. Every day my alarm went off at 5:30, whatever. I have to go teach my middle school, high school job. I woke up with anxiety, and as busy as I've been in the last 3 years, I don't wake up with anxiety. And that's a good check-in for myself. So you got to find those sorts of markers, I think, too.
Thinking about the farming and then turning it into food and the subscription, has your perception changed over time? how crazy was that idea when it first came out versus now that you've been in the trenches for a while? The confidence has to be up, and your idea of what this can do not only for farms but for the people consuming it. How has that changed over the last bit?
It never seemed like that crazy of an idea to me, honestly. Just because, but I had experience cooking, and I like cooking and enjoyed cooking. So that's the leap I think that probably a lot of people are coming to this from a farming perspective need to make. And if you're not confident in cooking, maybe find somebody who is, because that's growing for us. Like, yeah, the cooking is just an easy. It takes time and skills, but like the idea that you can take a thing that you pick out of the ground and do a few things to it, and it's worth 5 or 10 times as much, and including like the labor that went into that is kind of a no-brainer.
Has your cooking skills increased over time?
I think they've changed. I mean, it's really different cooking to scale. Those are the sorts of things that I've been learning about in volume, and also cooking in a way that the food is still as fresh as it looks, like even green, keeping stuff green. Like after you put it in a box, like you have to cook a different way. If you're cooking fresh and serving it right away, it's going to look great. But yes, learning stuff like that just through experience. I think, I mean, it's only been like a little over 6 months, I feel like, since we really got going.
I feel like when we were breaking that out, that was something I had to learn too, is that cooking and volume. And then you're exactly right, having to store it overnight and then deliver it, and it still has to be presented in the way it's fantastic. So it's different.
Yeah.
So it's not more difficult,
It's just different,
skill.
yeah.
Can you talk about how you found out about Brandon and Vegetable and how you and Joe came to the picture?
It was an Instagram thing. I think either he or I or both of us kind of did. I saw his page at some point and realized, okay, I got it. I remember now. So we saw the food truck. We were at the farmer's market 3 years ago, probably. And this is when he was still doing the food truck. Saw the food truck, and I think someone also mentioned to me, like, oh, there's a farm in Ernle, which is where we are. So I was aware that he was doing stuff, and kind of followed, like, looked at his page, thought that was cool that they were making the bootstrap farmer things. And then I was following him on Instagram, and I think one time he did a location search and found my page because I had tagged the location, and he sent us a message. And I was like, oh, okay, we're friends now. So then, yeah, I think probably invited us over to his place one time. He was meeting with some other local farmers, and we just took that opportunity to go over there. We had been looking at like some of his products, Bootstrap Farmer products online too. So we went over to his place, met a few people, met Titus. Love Titus.
Really circled the wagons over there.
Yeah. And yeah, from there I think I kept inviting people over to our place. Because it was exciting. We had been here for a few years and didn't really know of anybody else in the area that was interested in the kind of stuff that we were interested in or doing what we were doing. And then just almost immediately upon meeting Brandon, because he was already checked in with so many people, we were like, so yeah, I'm a little bit better at that than Joe. Like, trying to grab those people in. But we're used to community, and you know, we grew up in the punk scene, and you have this like really tight, anywhere you go in the like that, you know, you got the punks, you have your community, and so we were a little starved for that here for a while. So it's nice to be able to begin to build that up.
So for those people out there that are starting a homestead or starting a farm, and it's a partnership situation, or husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, What's it like working with your partner both at home and now over here, stranded out of a food truck? I mean, is there any advice you can give to those that are going to be working all the time together?
I mean, I guess you probably know if you're in the kind of relationship where you can work together and if you're okay with spending that amount of time together. Joe and I think, do tend to work really well because we're both very independent, but we've been together for so long. If we get in the kitchen and every week we've got, the 15 things we're going to make. And the thing I noticed right away is we didn't even have to talk about it. We just knew who was going to make what. And that, I don't know, if you're in a situation where one person is going to have to be more dictatorial over the other, it might not be the best idea. If you're both can kind of delegate what you're going to do, and if you both we have a strong work ethic, we're don't mind kicking our butts all day. But that's kind of it's gonna go. If you got a farm, that's probably the kind of people you are anyway.
And I would imagine you guys, I've described you both before as very capable, and both of you guys are so good at so many things. And how do you find yourself learning from each other and offering tips?
Yeah, that's a balancing act too. I think Joe's a little bit better at, I don't know. I think we're both aware of not telling each other what to do, or we often think that we have the best way to do it, but they're both good ways, so it's okay. And him, also just being understanding, I do the orders every week. I collate the orders, and I mess up almost every week. There's a little thing I do because it's really tedious, and I have to do it quickly. And he doesn't get mad at me when he has to do the deliveries. So just having patience and you still have to go home with each other at the end of the day. So I think that's important.
Let's say somebody's working a 9-to-5 job. They see this as an example of a way to make what they're going to do more profitable. Is there anything ground zero here? They haven't started anything. What are some things that they should consider while building their farm for farm fusion activity? Whether that's at farmer's market, food truck, a brick and mortar, at a pop-up, there's so many avenues to do it. How would you suggest somebody actually begin to quantify what they're going to do or where they should start at what scale?
I think a lot of new farmers, finding products or produce that grows really quickly, and focusing on the types of things, if you're just going to do salads, lettuce grows quickly, radishes grow quickly, and we already had a farm or a homestead that was in production, but it certainly wasn't focused on production for a business. It was more for us, and so we have a really wide variety of things growing, and that's not necessary, but it is a little bit more. If you're doing farm fusion or you're doing cooking, you probably want to diversify what you're growing a little bit more than another small farmer who's starting and wants to really focus on a few crops that they can grow really well. So that would be a difference to keep in mind, because you're changing your menu each week. You want to have that variety of things to offer. And in terms of transitioning from the 9 to, I still have, it's not full-time, it's part-time, but I still have a job, and getting in a situation where you can work a specific day, a few days for your one job, and then have at least 3 days probably to dedicate to the farm business. It really, we're here, we harvest Saturday, we cook Sunday, we prepare and deliver Monday. And I make the menu Friday or Saturday. Bare minimum, that's what you would need. And those would be full days. And Saturday like the buying day is kind of even a half day. It's not even really a full day, or buying and harvesting.
Well, then in between, there's still watering up the crop.
Yeah. So you need to be able to take care of, but that's intermittent. You need those like 3 dedicated days, and then time to commit during the week to actually doing the farming stuff. And Joe does more of that during the week. You had 2 people still working regular jobs. It might be a little bit difficult, but not impossible. And it depends on your community, your network, how much you're going to lean on other small local farmers, or how much you are wanting to grow the stuff just yourself, basically. But I imagine a time where I'm going to let go of that other job and then be able to do even more, focus more on maybe doing the farm dinners or special events. If we grow our subscriptions much more, we're going to have to split cooking into 2 days, probably. So, but it still orients itself in such a way that you've got 2.5, 3 days that's just focused on the cooking and the meal delivery, and then the rest of the time you're very flexible and can attend to the farm stuff.
Let me ask this, because I started my farm specifically to make these ingredients. So I always had to look at it that our farm's production was the meal, and then everything else was for that. So, I mean, I almost had to look at the farm as a factory that was producing widgets to make a thing. Is that so far off of that from your philosophy? Is that?
I think we've just our farm, our homestead is still functioning as that too. We're still growing a lot for ourselves and just experimenting quite a bit. So, and we have, I think, because we're catering to a wider like breadth of clients, we do have a pretty expansive menu, and we're not as strict about only using things that we grow. So while we would love to be able to do that, we're not doing that, and so that gives us a little bit more flexibility on the farm end too.